In the point-and-click Southern Gothic adventure game Norco, you play as Kay, a drifter returning to her titular Louisiana hometown after learning of the death of her mother. Upon arrival, Kay discovers her burnout brother is missing and that her mother had been researching a mysterious object she saw in Lake Pontchartrain before the cancer took her. Luckily, the family robot is here to help find answers. See, Norco takes place in a not-too-distant cyberpunkish future. However, don't expect high-tech neon skyscrapers and 50-foot-tall holographic women. Norco, Louisiana is a real refinery town just a half-hour west of New Orleans, and in the game, whatever dazzling sci-fi technology the future brings has either been denied to the poverty-prone residents or else used to keep them dangling on the edge of precarity. Desperate people work gig jobs via apps that pay them in company crypto script whose value is subject to the whims of the stock market. Drones and robots replace flesh and blood workers at the refinery that owns the town, some even acting as lethal sentries weaponized against activists. Beyond androids and AR apps, the Norco of the near future doesn't look wildly different from the Norco of today. Real-life Norco is dominated by the Shell Petroleum Refinery, just as in-game Norco is dominated by S.H.I.E.L.D. In both versions, the residents live under a literal cloud of pollution belched out by the refinery. In the game, the cancer that kills Kay's mother is strongly linked to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s refinery activities. In real life, the 85-mile stretch of Louisiana between New Orleans and Baton Rouge is known as Cancer Alley, where residents don't even sit outside in the evenings because chemicals released by the plants create an oily mist. People living in Cancer Alley are 50 times more likely to contract cancer than the national average. In one area, over a span of 3 years, 1 in 3 pregnancies ended in miscarriage. For real-life Norco residents, there's even a kind of recursiveness to the cruelty on display from Shell. Crude oil is refined by Shell and used as fuel for the hustle and bustle of modern life. These fossil fuels produce greenhouse gases that warm the oceans. Warm ocean water in the Gulf Coast region increases the frequency and severity of hurricanes, the same hurricanes that in 2021 deluged the Shell refinery and caused the excessive flaring of toxic chemicals and other greenhouse gases into the town. This is an example of what Rob Nixon has called slow violence against the poor and particularly against communities of color. Unlike the spectacular violence of firing a gun or dropping a bomb, slow violence happens over months, years, decades. It can be largely invisible, happening in water molecules and blood cells, and it's very difficult to attribute to any one specific agent. Who is responsible for the miscarriages in St. Gabriel, Louisiana? Syngenta? Olin? Honeywell? Who is responsible for Hurricane Ida? Shell? Valero? Ford and Boeing for making vehicles burning the fuel? You and me for driving and flying? In the game world of Norco, this slow violence plays out with a small cast of characters and a small slice of the city. The violence manifests in everything from cancer-stricken residents to homes damaged by floods due to underfunded infrastructure. And even when the S.H.I.E.L.D. Corporation is demonstrably responsible for certain crimes, there's never even a question of whether justice is possible through the system. It isn't. In the course of the game, Kay meets exactly one S.H.I.E.L.D. executive, and it's one who's currently being ousted by an unseen board of directors. Catherine visits City Hall, but it's after hours. The city council chambers are empty. There's no one to seek reparations from, much less revenge. Normal people just don't have the tools to attack the entrenched forces of capital. Except someone in Norco actually does have those tools, and you find him behind the convenience store grumbling about a horse. His name is Lucky, and you soon discover that he's responsible for blowing up an oil pipeline. In an interesting bit of serendipity, I started reading Andreas Malm's book, How to Blow Up a Pipeline, the same day I finished Norco. In the book, Malm begins by weaving together his history with the climate activism movement and the science underlying his sense of urgency about the consequences that are coming if the world does not quickly and decisively scale back the amount of greenhouse gases being released into the atmosphere. Malm is not bashful about what he and climate scientists believe is at stake, close to all living beings on heaven and on earth. Malm's book asks a thorny question. If climate scientists are correct about the mass death we'll be experiencing as a result of unchecked fossil fuel consumption, ethically speaking, what actions are off limits to prevent such a horror? Malm recalls fellow activists referring approvingly to the nonviolent protests for women's suffrage and civil rights, and then shows how the nonviolent wings of those movements were always flanked by more militant groups. Suffragettes burned down and blew up villas, tea houses, theaters, and even yachts. In a year and a half, suffragettes took responsibility for 337 acts of property destruction, with not one life lost. Likewise, people who praise Martin Luther King Jr. for his nonviolent marches forget that many black activists' homes and meetings were protected by armed black radicals who often chased away Klansmen and other hostiles. The presence of a militant wing of activists allowed MLK to present himself as the gentle alternative to the Malcolm X's out there, an alternative the government chose to engage with in 1964. In the struggle against South African apartheid, it was Nobel Peace Prize winner Nelson Mandela who pushed for cells of activists to begin targeting military installations, power plants, and telephone lines. He specifically said that the goal was to scare nationalists and frighten away foreign capital. Malm discusses how destruction of property, particularly in the affluent sectors of the global north, is treated like unconscionable violence. He recalls a time he participated in a guerrilla action to let the air out of the tires of SUVs in a rich neighborhood over several evenings, leaving notes on windshields explaining the urgency of climate justice. Within days, the organization received numerous death threats, were told they were destroying democracy, and one person said they would let pedophiles out of jail to make room for the climate activists. The tires were not damaged in any way, just deflated, and the wealthy reacted with pure, acid hatred. In other instances, activists who cut chain-link fences and incinerated empty pipeline equipment were treated like violent domestic terrorists, as if they were identical to people flying planes into buildings. If a flat tire or a charred tractor is violence, then what is it when a community's groundwater is polluted with toxic waste? What is it when the air they breathe gives them painful, terminal cancer and gives their children asthma? What is it when the coastline lurches forward to swallow their homes and the new normal of record heat destroys their crops? Malm's book is a measured, careful exploration of the ethics of sabotage and political violence in the face of a looming threat to billions of lives over the next century. Neither shy about discussing unsavory activities, nor reckless about the realities of public perception and human dignity. Malm is extremely conscientious about human life, and the book never treats flesh and blood as collateral damage. Instead, he simply explores the morality of a wide variety of tactics and what that might mean for activists working in a variety of environments and social contexts. To conclude this little diversion, I want to highlight something Malm says early in the book. He first describes coal-fired power plants and oil pipelines as investments made by private capital. Because they are investments, capitalism demands that these assets operate as long as possible to maximize the return on investment. He then notes that even after massive protests in the 90s and early 2000s, investors continue to invest in new fossil fuel projects, completely unswayed by the science and undeterred by the demonstrations. The sheer number of investments made in fossil fuels by private capital proves something. The capital-owning class does not believe future climate policy will exist. Or if it does, they believe in their ability to circumvent it and continue to exploit their investments for decades to come. Later, after reiterating the urgency and severity of climate catastrophe, Malm delivers a kind of call to action, and let me be clear, I'm quoting a book. I am not myself telling you to do anything. Malm says, so here's what this movement of millions should do. Announce and enforce this prohibition on all new CO2-emitting devices. Put them out of commission, pick them apart, demolish them, burn them, blow them up. Let the capitalists who keep investing in the fire of global warming know that their properties will be trashed. We are the investment risk. Returning to Norco, the one S.H.I.E.L.D. executive you meet is Laura St. Clair, the daughter of a tech billionaire. The board of directors made her the regional CEO in an effort to curry favor with her father. No matter how much S.H.I.E.L.D. polluted the community under her watch, no matter how many people contracted cancer, no matter how desperate the surrounding town got, Laura was unaccountable, untouchable. However, when you meet her, she's in the process of being humiliated and forced out of her role. Not because of the lives lost under her watch, not because of the climate science she ignored, but instead because she began wasting company cash to search Lake Pontchartrain for the mysterious object Kay's mom had discovered. Laura St. Clair committed the only sin recognized in the Church of Capitalism. She harmed profits. She was an investment risk, something that not even her wealth and connections could protect her from. However, Norco is not a game about a plucky band of misfits bringing down $1 billion corporation. The in-game world doesn't work that way, and neither does our real one. Instead, the game is about how different people make meaning living in a dying town, in a dying world, under the shadow of the very knife killing them both. Some people fall under the spell of charismatic conspiracy peddlers offering a seductive higher truth. Others try to leave some meager legacy for the next generation to build from. Some fight off the dark in the warm glow of luxury and consumption. Others just try to survive the day in front of them alongside the people they love. There is no single rational way to respond to a world being murdered right before your eyes. There's no single obvious response to the fact that the murder weapons all have addresses. You're going to have to make your own meaning.